Ms. Kalinowski is absent. Mr. Bush?
Here.
Vice President Darrow?
Here.
President McClelland?
Here. Ask everyone to please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Board members have had the opportunity to look at the board minutes from our last session. Could I get a motion to approve board minutes, please?
So moved.
Mr. Newmoff?
Second.
Mr. Darrow? Roll call, please.
Mr. Newmoff?
Yes.
Vice President Darrow?
Yes.
Mr. Bush?
Yes.
Ms. Kalinowski? Yes. President McClelland?
Yes. So that brings us to tonight's agenda. Any additions or corrections to tonight's agenda?
Thank you, President McClellan. Yes, there's an addendum agenda this evening to accept 2 resignations as well as to approve the Ohio School Plan insurance policy for the 2017-18 school year. The addendum agenda is available within board docs for you to see.
With those, could I have a motion for approval?
So moved.
Mr. Darrow?
Second.
Mr. Bush? And a roll call.
Vice President Darrow?
Yes.
Mr. Bush?
Yes.
Mr. Newmoff?
Yes.
Ms. Kalinowski? Yes. President McClelland?
Yes. Okay, communications to the board. Mr. Sawyers.
Thank you, President McClellan. Board of Education members, I'd like to begin this evening, and audience members, with an update related to the unfortunate circumstances that have transpired within our school district since last Monday, a week ago today. So we're going to walk through in a very high level the information. So I prepared a brief slideshow presentation that will be available on the TV screens and did it to basically provide summary information to our viewing audience, as well as to the members at large and information for the Board of Education. But I think everyone in the school district and our community knows that a week ago today, we were subject to some vandalism within our school district, specifically at the high school tennis courts, that resulted in significant damage. Current estimations are approximately $16,000. Patrick, I'm not getting the advancement, so I can switch. Approximately $16,000. We're actively working with the New Albany Police Department as part of the ongoing investigation. So everything I'm going to speak about this evening will be at a very high level. Because of the ongoing investigation and my conversations with the Chief of Police, Greg Jones. So last Monday at approximately 6:30 in the morning, I learned of the vandalism on the school property through Mr. Carter at the high school, who had received notification. The vandalism actually occurred overnight. We actually used the high school tennis courts until approximately 6:30 on Sunday evening the night before. So between 7 o'clock p.m. and approximately 6 o'clock a.m. is the window of opportune time that's being investigated for the vandalism that took place. There were multiple inappropriate racial and or derogatory comments that were basically spray painted in black and white spray paint all over the tennis courts and the tennis equipment shed. The derogatory commentary was upsetting, absolutely intolerable and ridiculous, to be honest about it, for what we had to face and everything that transpired thereafter as a result of the choices of one or more individuals. Because of the ongoing investigation, I just have to say one or more individuals. We've received multiple tips and information through a wide variety of resources that the school district is actively investigating in cooperation with the police department. But we're just going to leave it at one or more individuals are currently persons of interest in the investigation. So once we got notification, the action process for response then went into full swing. We contacted a wide variety of district administrators, New Albany Police Department. We convened on the tennis courts. There was caution tape up by 7:15. Unfortunately, some students arriving to school had already seen the derogatory commentary that was spray painted on the specific shed and the tennis courts prior to the application of the tarp and or the caution tape, so kids would not basically move through the tennis courts. We met at the high school, both the administrative team and with the New Albany Police Department. By 9:30 that morning, the shed had been repainted. Thanks to our maintenance staff, We secured paint very quickly and applied it specifically to the shed. It took a few hours for us to talk to the tennis court installers to confirm what we could or could not do specifically to the tennis courts, because we didn't want to create additional damage beyond the damage that was already there. We suspected that there would be resurfacing that will be required, and we have since learned that in a lot of likelihood that will happen for 3 tennis courts. By 9:30 that morning, Mr. Carter had sent the incident information to the entire high school population, so we released information to try to talk about what was going on based upon the facts of the circumstances that were there. That's a copy of the message that'll be posted on our website. It's already on our website, but it's part of the presentation purposes, just so people can understand what we did. By noon that day, the Peace Week message was specifically sent from Mr. Carter to parents, students, and staff. We reiterated the focus of the week and tried to help people understand that this incident, as intolerable as it is for our school district, doesn't define us as a school district or, more importantly, as a community. There was a public address from Mr. Carter to the student body related to the parent panel that was actually going to be convened to talk about culture, diversity, acceptance in our community. Specifically, and Mr. Carter actually addressed the entire student body in 2 separate settings during Peace Week, during this parent panel on those specific topics. And the senior Red Ingram at the high school did a phenomenal job of actually facilitating those panel discussions with our parent population. Our kids had actually pre-submitted questions for the panel of parents on a wide variety of topics, but all, again, falling within culture, diversity, and acceptance at the high school. Later that afternoon, we again met with the New Albany Police Department. There's been ongoing conversations just about every single day at different times based upon the investigation. That's a copy of the message that specifically went out from Mr. Carter related to the panel in Peace Week. Then later that afternoon, by 2:30 on Monday, so it seems like Monday was a very long day, it was. By 2:30, we had painted the tennis courts. We secured a different color of blue paint from the tennis court manufacturer that was permissible for us to apply to the courts, again, not to provide for additional damage, but to eliminate the spray paint of the derogatory commentary that was present. By 4 o'clock that afternoon, we had refined a message that we sent out to the entire learning community from my office, specifically on what had transpired throughout the day and what we specifically did. That resulted in an onslaught of media responses and requests. So by 6 o'clock that evening, we had talked to ABC6, Fox 28, NBC4, The Dispatch, and This Week New Albany to report on what specifically had happened across the school campus. And again, Patrick's included a copy of the message that we sent out that was also posted on our website. Tuesday morning, we reconvened with the police department. We went through ultimately a new incident of a rumor that was circulating through social media, specifically about potential of someone coming to the school district with the intent to quote unquote shoot it up. We took the necessary action on behalf of the school district to send out an additional communication to parents and families district-wide to respond to the social media threat that was basically present. Parents were calling in numerous tips throughout the day related to not only the social media event, but our request to see something, say something, and the vandalism associated to the tennis courts. By that afternoon, Mr. Carter had made an additional announcement, ultimately trying to help students at the high school determine how to express their frustrations, but do it in a positive manner. There was a negative reaction to several things that were happening on social media. Kids were angry, frustrated, and irritated by what other students were saying in the social media world for instantaneous gratification. So Mr. Carter went on the announcements after a conversation and made an additional public address to the student body and actually invited them to the quad for an impromptu unity rally that I believe a student is actually, or several students are here this evening to talk about. I think it was very powerful because it sent a message again that this specific incident is not going to define the school district and or the school community at large. Later that afternoon, we again sent email reminders to kids about options for Peace Week sign-up. So the Peace Talks specifically for the high school went out. Students were asked to gather in the quad, which they did, and you'll hear about that this evening. from one or more of the students, and ultimately the social media post thereafter, and it's probably the one that we can find that really truly emulates everything that happened. So my kudos to Mr. Carter and the entire administrative team and the entire high school, faculty and staff for their entire response to this entire episode and what's transpired and the work that we've done as an administrative team across the school district. The next morning, there was actually, and it's the picture that we started with, and Patrick will show it to you in just a second, students overnight had taken it upon themselves, or ultimately in the dusk hours, to actually spell peace out using the styrofoam cups on the tennis court fence. There was video posted on the social media walls associated to that. Rumor threats, ultimately, or the messaging went out again through swirling text. It wasn't exactly a threat, ultimately, that was put out, but in hopes that there was going to be a school cancellation. So we again reacted to that and sent a joint message to basically dispel the rumors that school was not being canceled, and despite what some students were attempting to do on social media, the school day would proceed as normal. The Eagle response team convened at the high school to ultimately talk about how to help kids process feelings and or the threat of how they felt specifically by the graffiti that was found on the tennis courts, and there was a plan of action put in place. Again, there was another high school update went out. That's the piece that was actually spelled out using the styrofoam cups at the tennis courts by the kids. And then later that morning, the peace talks convened. And again, they went ahead as scheduled on the wide variety of topics that were selected by the kids. We've continued to meet with the New Albany Police Department, as I've said, and had ongoing conversations with the administration every single day. So we've gotten together multiple times to talk about and touch base and ensure the safety and welfare of everything that's transpiring across the school campus on a daily basis within our school community. The vandalism update went out that afternoon based upon my conversations with Chief Jones. We added the new information that there was a reward being offered by Crime Stoppers. We as a school district do not determine the reward. It's actually through the Crime Stoppers board based upon the level of damage that actually occurs and the sponsorship of the reward that they then offer. We did publish the initial estimate of $16,000 worth of damage to the specific tennis courts and or adjacent property. At the same time that day, it was discovered that there was additional damage done at Wexner Community Park. There was some damage done on some slides in vicinity of the school district. So the vandals didn't stop on our school district. They actually did some other damage within the community at large. We then went on Thursday with the celebration of seniors. It was the seniors walkout day, so senior seminar went on. We had a wonderful celebration of the senior projects at the McCoy Center. All juniors and seniors did attend to basically refocus us back to the educational learning opportunities that are present on our school campus. Our surprise, and we did not know about it, and I believe Stephen Kish and a few other students are here this evening, to talk about an initiative that was actually led by senior students at the high school. So I'm not going to steal their thunder. They will be able to talk about that because I've been told that they're here. We proceeded with senior lunch and the senior walk that capped off the day. It was a very unifying experience, and we ended the senior portion of the school year, last final exams, as normal. Friday was the Peace Week lunch on the lawn, the peace games and competitions amongst the houses, and ultimately the fun activities specifically for seniors. It was a very, very productive day. We had a great day on campus. The weather was back and forth, but didn't ultimately rain on the kids' parade. The kids had a great time, and we're very, very happy to end the week in a very positive way. Since then, we've continued to try to come up with ways daily to support students and staff dominantly and honestly at the high school. We are paying attention across the entire school campus. We've touched base with every building principal. The resource officers have been actually out and about. We have increased patrol thanks to New Albany Police Department at my request to basically pay attention to everything else that's happening on the school campus as we approach the end of the school year. We are researching the history of a culture committee that did exist within our school district, and I'm learning more about that because it actually preceded my time within the school district dominantly for the work that actually occurred. Dwight and I have a superintendent student advisory, and Dwight has one as well at the high school. We're convening the student advisories to get a student's perspective on what else we can learn or do as a school district to provide additional supports for our kids. Mrs. Kalinowski and I are scheduled to meet with the PTO leadership next week. We've actually put this on the agenda as a topic for discussion to begin the parent conversation for direct input. We're continuing to respond because it's an active ongoing investigation, either through the school district administration, and it's any administrator in the school district, and or through the police department, to the tips that we're getting from students, parents, and community members. We're taking any information seriously. It's not localized, honestly, just to this specific act of vandalism. There's been several other things that have been reported, and our request to see something, say something, and the building principals and assistant principals and deans of students have been extremely busy following up on the information provided by students and parents. So the Safe Schools hotline has been very active, which is exactly what we want to happen. It is a free and anonymous way to communicate or report specific incidences to the school district, and we're very appreciative that people are taking us at our word and doing that. Mr. Carter has solicited staff participation for an internal committee at the high school, specifically based upon our conversations related to culture and climate. Parent participation options are forthcoming. Mrs. Kalinowski and I, again, are meeting with PTO next week to talk about how to best engage the parent population into conversation. We will, and I've stated this multiple times, continue to enforce the student code of conduct that basically governs the expectations we have across the school campus for all students enrolled within our school district. We will vigorously enforce the requirements of the student code of conduct, and any student's behavior that is found to be in violation and inappropriate to the student code of conduct will be held accountable to the code of conduct with appropriate disciplinary action. And unfortunately, I have to share with you that we've been doing that just about every single day since this vandalism occurred in a wide variety of ways. So we do have to help our kids learn to hopefully make some different choices and have positive behaviors in response, because unfortunately we've seen some negative behaviors, and truthfully it's just out of frustration and anger. The kids are trying to have an outlet to figure out how to deal with this, and we're trying to actively support them in every way we can. We are focused on finishing the school year strong. We are in the home stretch, counting down to the last day of school. There's still a wide variety of learning opportunities that happen across the school campus. Final exams are all underway at the high school, and seniors will graduate on Saturday. So we are on schedule, but we are taking every day as an opportunity to continue to focus on what makes us great, and it's our kids. Planning for 17-18, just as a preview, we've been actively working to complete a well-being programming audit or assessment across our school campus for all pre-K through 12 programming, specifically by grade level. So we're incorporating this topic of discussion into those conversations. We actually have partnerships with Nationwide Children's Hospital, the OSU Wexner Medical Center, the city, the township, a wide variety of different types of social service agencies. I met this past week with the city, the township, the Attorney General's office, mental health support specialists, and several other counseling services to try to provide us professional insight into ways that we ultimately can improve upon our response as a school district. We're viewing this as a learning opportunity and a way to ultimately engage in continuous improvement discussions. The leadership team as a whole, and this is actually a preview for the fall, but has been actively working to participate in fulfilling the professional development requirements that I gave them as the new superintendent related to Focus 3, and it's the expectations plus response equals outcome. Lots and lots of attention in relationship to ERO because of the Ohio State University and Urban Meyer, but we're actually working on that today as a leadership team in preparation for convocation in August. This will be something that we're actually going to do with the entire staff to talk about how we as a school district define our expectations that ultimately result in the outcomes that you desire. and then what our specific responses are. And that's really the focus of the discussions that we're having. It's not just a school district response, but a community response. And I was very thankful, and I'll use my meeting recently with the city and the other mental health, social services, or medical team personnel or medical professionals that I met with, that they agreed that I can't fix all of this in 6.5 hours to 7 hours a day at school. And we have to define specifically what the school role is going to be, and then ultimately work with our parents and our community at large to understand the responsibilities beyond the school district. So we absolutely clearly have a role to play, but we also have to get the support from everyone else into this conversation so that we ultimately can help kids ultimately within a behavioral perspective, because that's really what the code of conduct represents. It defines the behavioral expectations we have for students to stay safe on our school district every single day. And we as a school district have to continue to enforce that code of conduct, but at the same time, educate our kids to understand that your response matters. We have to talk about the response, and it needs to be a positive response, not a negative response that then violates the code of conduct that then results in another negative outcome. So we want to change it to a positive conversation, but this has to become a community-based discussion. And fortunately, because of our community, I've had everyone reach out to basically say, we want to be part of the solution. Tell us how we can participate. So we're actively working to define what that's going to look like as a school district for all the different stakeholder groups that ultimately do represent the school district, and systemically want to step back and have the conversation in a pre-K through 12 environment. So there's been a lot of activity across the entire school campus in the last week. I'm very thankful for the response of our entire staff at every level, trying to continue to do everything that's necessary to protect the safety and welfare of kids. We care about kids deeply. I know our parents care about kids deeply, as does our community. And I'm absolutely convinced that this act of vandalism by one or a few, and I don't know if they're all students or if they're young adults or if they're actually adults, but whatever comes out of that investigation, the act of a few cannot define us as a school district and cannot define us as a community. Our response must. And that's really what we've been focusing on, is what will our response be? And as you can see, and this is just a high-level outline, we've done a lot in a week to try to demonstrate that we've taken this seriously. It's absolutely unacceptable, and this does not define us as a school district. This is not who we are, and this is not what we believe, and this is not who our kids are. So we will continue to do that, but again, on behalf of the entire school administration and the Board of Education at large, because I know you will agree with me, I just want to thank everyone that has reached out, actively participated, or done something to support us dominantly in the last week, clearly all year long, but in the last week for this specific event, because it's been actually overwhelming. But we're very grateful for everyone coming out to provide the support and focusing on the kids and putting them first, because everyone right after this happened was immediately focused on what do we do to try to help kids make different decisions if necessary and keep them safe at school. So on behalf of the administration, I'd like to thank everyone who helped to do that, because we could not have done it without you. I will stop there and answer any questions or comments that I'm permitted to answer because of the ongoing investigation.
Anything?
I would just say thank you, Mr. Sawyers, and to the entire administration and staff for all the work that you put into this and the planning you're putting around the response. I mean, clearly we are, and I'll speak for our board, I know that this is not reflective of our schools district, this one act, and I know that we'll be stronger going forward with the activities that you'll put in place to help us improve as a district. So I really do appreciate all the effort that's gone in. It's terrible this unfortunate incident has happened, and does not speak on behalf of the district or the community, but we need to ensure that we're working toward continued education to ensure it doesn't happen again.
Your report was extensive, and so I don't know that there's really any need for questions, but thank you. And Mr. Carter, thank you for your leadership. And we see the best in people when they're confronted with adversity. So thank you. That goes to everybody, our teaching staff, our administration. Pretty damn proud to be a New Albany Eagle. Okay. Update from Plea. Who gets the honors this evening? Right.
Salisa Finley.
Hi, Salisa.
I apologize, these are just coming down the table to you now. Follow along as I read every word to you. Just kidding, I'm going to keep this brief. These are some accomplishments and updates the staff wanted to share with you. And I'm going to be jumping around a little bit, but 3 high school teachers, Ann Stidham, Jenny Sage, and Ben Arthurs, recently completed coursework to meet the new qualifications set forth by the Ohio Department of Higher Education to teach college-level classes in the high school. Lori Cheney, high school teacher, participated in a 5-day educators workshop at Parris Island Marine Corps Recruit Depot in South Carolina. She hopes to be someone students can come talk to about the military and is enjoying sharing her experience with teachers in the high school to raise awareness about this important post-secondary opportunity. Middle school teachers, Susie Cooper, Carrie Fuller, and Jess Miller had their Compact English 8 course. After completing their semester at Columbus State, they kept the learning going, and they with the Service Learning Project, and together with the New Albany Village Coalition, they did a hunger food drive. And 2 5 interventionists, Amanda Coe, Kara Kent, Michelle Keebler, Tracy Quillen, Shelley Schaub, Angie Seacrest, and Diana Smith hosted a Title I summer reading parent night. And the families of the students were invited to attend and were taught about how to best support the needs of their students over the summer. And students got to select 2 books to kick off their summer reading.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Salisa. Do you have a report from Upstate?
No report from Upstate. Okay. All right, so then next item, I'd like to have our athletic director, Richie Wildenhouse, come up and talk to us about the Eagle Backers Coach Education Program.
Well, good evening, and thank you for allowing me the opportunity to steal a few minutes of your time. For those of you who I haven't had the opportunity to meet, again, my name is Richie Wildenhouse, and I'm the athletic director at New Albany High School. Partnering with the Eagle Backers on our coaches' professional development this year has been something that has been much needed. It was evident to me coming into this position as a new staff member, taking over the athletic department for the first time. Our coaches are absolutely great at what they do. They're excellent X's and O's technicians. They're great leaders. But the one thing that we really saw a need in developing and continuing to develop is their leadership skills. And so we partnered with Jack Slavinsky, who is, amongst many things, a professor at The Ohio State University, teaches leadership courses there. He also has a curriculum called Lead for Influence. And we brought him in to work with our coaches in a targeted, authentic, and rigorous leadership development program. And we could not do that alone. The cost, obviously, of bringing in someone like that to work with our coaches is not necessarily something that was written into the budget coming into this year and inheriting that operational budget. So working with Eagle Backers, we were able to solidify some of the funds. Not just, and I should stop at that, it's not just about financial support. It was about supporting the idea that our coaches needed to work on things like the soft skills of leadership, and not just sending them to sport-specific conferences and things like that, which are important. But we saw a significant need in our athletic department to work on those things, and it gets really back to the why and why we do what we do. We have committed ourselves to educationally based athletics, coaching beyond the X's and O's, impacting student athletes to help them develop life skills beyond the scoreboard. And so we really commit ourselves to learning and bettering ourselves as coaches. We're an extension of the classroom. We firmly believe that, and we will continue to put our coaches through professional development that will support that philosophy. Some of the topics covered really sound somewhat elementary, but they are not when you really dig down into the depths of what makes a person the type of leader that they are, that they can become, and really learning what your style is and how to flex that to be able to work well with a variety of different people, not just student athletes, but we're talking about parents, community members as well. Developing self-awareness and emotional management, communication strategies, coaching Generation Y student athletes, and that was a very in-depth conversation. Building relationships and influencing and decision making, and help developing high-performing teams. Again, the partnership with the Eagle Backers has allowed us to bring that program in this year. We look forward to expanding on that next year. Jack Slavinsky and I have started to develop what this is going to look like for us in the future. We plan on not only continuing that work with our coaches, but expanding that with our student athletes as well. Initially with our student athlete leadership council, which will be made up of representatives of all of our sports teams, and working with them in a teacher, teach those particular students the concepts, and then they're able to relate that to their teams in their own way, and we'll give them the education necessary to be able to do that. And that just follows we task our student athletes with being leaders or captains, but we don't always give them and help them develop the skills necessary to be successful in that. So we plan on continuing that as well. So we look forward to continued partnerships with the Eagle Backers, because I do know that is one area that they really plan on focusing on. And I did want to, I believe Larry Firth, if he could come up, just to take a brief moment to explain why they were interested in partnering with us with this.
For those of you who don't know, thanks for the opportunity. For those of you who don't know, the Eagle Backers are a reconstituted booster organization. One of the parts of the mission statement I'll just read of the new group is the boosters create and leverage opportunities for the community to be linked to the school's athletic program. So we're trying to make sure those linkages occurred. Sort of been under the radar, but you'll be hearing a lot in the coming months from the Eagle Backers. And Richie mentioned the organization really has 5 areas of influence, we call it: student athlete professional development, leadership development, which is one of the areas that fits nicely with what Richie's leading here in the district, community engagement, team support, and then small asks that any athletic boosters department sort of deals with. So we're thrilled to be a part of it. Some of the trustees are here, and got to give Mark Wilson kudos for all the work that he's done, but we're thrilled to work with a liaison role with the school board, continue to support Richie in what he's doing. So thank you.
Thank you.
Really, that's all I have as far as that goes. I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have regarding what we've been doing in the world of coaches' professional development, or how we plan on expanding that for the future.
Hope the coaches receive the leadership training.
Sure. I'm a feedback person, and so prior to, during, and since after we have completed this year's professional development, I wanted to gauge what it was that they felt like they really wanted to get out of a high quality professional development opportunity. And then throughout, just through conversations, finding out from coaches what was working well, what they were enjoying. What we were finding was that they enjoyed the content, that was great, but having professional dialogue amongst other coaches, in which really prior to this year, they hadn't really sat down in that kind of setting. And that professional dialogue is invaluable, as trivial as that may seem. You're able to share ideas, best practices, and learn from each other, allow our veteran coaches to impact our younger coaches, and then vice versa. Younger coaches bringing in fresher ideas. And then afterwards, hearing from the coaches about how they plan to implement the strategies that they've learned throughout the course of the 7 months that we worked, and the 18 hours of sessions that we went through. And to hear their excitement about how we're going to expand on that is really refreshing, and it makes me excited to continue to develop our coaches' leadership capacity, because it directly impacts our student athletes and quite frankly our campus as a whole. So.
Well, thank you so much for investing in the coaches. I think, they have such an incredible impact on our athletes, and I don't know that we historically have done a lot of investing in them, and I think it was probably needed, and I hope they appreciate your leadership too.
I think they do. Yeah, that's at least from the feedback that I've received. So
Good.
yeah, I enjoy working with our coaches. We have an outstanding staff, and I know they're eager to continue with the process. So.
Is there written curricula and course material?
So Jack Slavinsky develops that, and he actually it's not a cookie cutter program. He works with several other athletic departments throughout the state of Ohio, but he did a lot of work with us up front to gauge and kind of understand our current climate and our culture within our athletic department, and everything was targeted. And that's why when I say targeted and authentic, I mean that it was targeted specifically to our specific needs. And so throughout the course of the 7 months, Jack was developing the curriculum. Obviously, he works off of a base, but really tailor making it to serve our needs.
I'd love to see it.
Yeah, you bet.
I like learning about that stuff too. So
Absolutely.
He's a leadership
Share.
geek.
Yeah. Sounds great.
among many other types of geek, I'm sure.
Great.
Well, thank you very much for the
Thank you.
time.
Thanks, Richie.
Thank you.
Thank you, Richie.
Thank you.
Discussion items tonight. Any board liaison reports? I know we've all been pretty busy with lots of things, but I just wanted to see if anybody had checked in with anybody else recently. Okay. Our second item then is the substance use, I should say, survey results. Mr. Sawyers.
Thank you, President McClellan. At this time, I'd invite Dr. Shirley Hamilton, Director of Secondary Education, Mr. Carter as high school principal, and Mrs. LeBeau as the middle school principal. They're going to review at a very high level the 2016-17 student substance use results based upon the survey that was conducted in February.
Thank you,
Dr. Hamilton.
Good evening. Thank you, Superintendent Sawyers, Board President McClellan, members of the board. Thank you so much for this opportunity to share the results of the substance use survey that we conducted with our middle school and high school students in late February. I have Mrs. LeBeau and Mr. Carter with me, our principals at the high school and middle school, to help share the results. So we're going to begin with the purpose and rationale. This is part of a larger, a broader program. This isn't just something that we're doing in isolation. We had lots of things going on at the middle school and high school this year, and in the community as well, part of a broader program, which you'll see later. But the purpose and rationale for the substance use survey was, it's based on our statement of purpose. Our district is committed to creating a culture of accountability that achieves the best academic and developmental outcomes for each student. So it's based on our statement of purpose for the district. It's also based on the continuous improvement plan. Under number 5 on the continuous improvement plan, enhance our school culture and social emotional well-being of our students. Also, in addition to that, it also talks about having age-appropriate student surveys, which help us establish baseline data, which is part of our continuous improvement plan. So we were establishing baseline data. It also fosters a safe, healthy, and substance-free environment for the well-being of our students. We also have data now that provides feedback in order to support student growth. It can help us ensure a safe and supportive learning environment for all. We also, through this information, can better understand student thoughts, perceptions, and experiences related to substance abuse in order to know how to best support our students and their needs. So that was the purpose and rationale. Here's the process. We partnered with Hanover Research in Arlington, Virginia. We've done other surveys with Hanover, and we administered the survey online on February 27th at New Albany Middle School and then on February 28th at New Albany High School. We had over, because it was done online and administered during the school day, we had over 95% participation for both buildings. It was huge participation. And as I said, it was online, administered during the school day, and we had a parent guardian opt-out. They had an opt-out option if they didn't want their child to participate. And the results were totally anonymous, and we had only summary data, and it's not broken down by individual students. So what are some of the key findings? So we first had, which was kind of really good news, 79% of our students, so like almost 4/5 of our students reported not using a substance. That means we had about 1/5 of our student respondents who did report using a substance. And so what did they report? They reported alcohol, 18%, illicit drugs, 9%. And just as an FYI, of the 9% of the illicit drugs, overwhelmingly marijuana was the most prevalent, 96% and 96%. So that was the most prevalent of the illicit drugs. And then 7% for tobacco and 5% for prescription medication not prescribed. Now, I will have a caveat here. Based on feedback and discussions with students and anecdotal data that the high school administrative team gathered, we believe that the high school students kind of underreported. So even though we have 4/5 saying they didn't use a substance, we think that might be a little bit underreported. So I do want to bring that up. So moving on with the key findings, I'm going to let Mr. Carter talk about the age of first use and where.
Thank you, Board of Education, President McClellan, Mr. Sawyers, Dr. Hamilton, so forth and so on. If you look at the data, you see that most of the students responded their first time using is between the ages of 15 and 17, which is the early high school years. So possibly the transition. 25% said they had used some type of alcohol, again, age 15 to 16, which is typically middle of their freshman year going into their sophomore year. First time marijuana or prescription drug use that wasn't prescribed was, again, probably ended their sophomore year and into their junior year. Which is interesting based on the data. Where students said they use is at home, at friends' homes, or at events outside of school, parties and so forth. And that is in line with the anecdotal data that we do have from students just in casual conversations with trusted adults or mentors within the school system. So that part does line up with what we think is happening as well. So they access it through friends, through dealers, and dealers could be friends at school or friends outside of school, or access to some dealers outside of school, and older siblings. So it's a modeled behavior at times for those who report it. Some of the reasons, interesting enough, it's to have to feel good about themselves, to feel good at the moment or in the moment. Some of them are bored, and others feel like it's an escape from their lives. So those are very interesting reasons, and we have to think about what in their lives is causing the amount of stress where they have to escape, and who's the bored and why are they bored, and then what is it that they're trying to escape from, and how do we provide the conditions at school for them to depend or rely on other sources of strength to cope through the stresses of life. That's a reality. Some of the key findings in the chart, we highlighted in the yellow arrows point to the reasons why they use school or use alcohol and drugs to escape, to feel good, to bored. And one of them I thought was interesting is because it increases the confidence. So again, I think that to me, those four things point to a pressure-filled environment where the students feel like they're less than or can't achieve without some type of support, or they don't have the resiliency yet to overcome a setback, be it academic, social, emotional, or otherwise. So it's just something for us to think about.
I just want to make just a couple of comments on the information Mr. Carter presented. One of the things we talked about at our secondary leadership team, because we went over these results as a group, we talked about dealers. Now you think of dealers, being these high profile people or maybe low profile, but on the street corner or whatever. And that is when we're talking about students. We're talking about students in our building who are serving as dealers. They're working with the higher profile dealers and bring it into our buildings. And so they're our students' friends and acquaintances. And so when you hear the term dealers, that doesn't necessarily, mean what you normally think that it means. I also wanted to comment on that, this chart, that it's not so much, people always say, well, the students use to fit in, or they see it on TV and in movies, and so that's why they use substances. I think it was interesting that those weren't high on the list for the students. So I just wanted to point out a couple of things like that, just for interest purposes. Now, Mrs. LeBeau is going to talk about our mental health and wellness and student support.
So the issues our kids are experiencing are stress and anxiety, family stressors, depression, and then some of our children have no issues. What's interesting is our stress and anxiety is about 45%, and about 49% of our kids report no issues. So the other interesting thing is if you break this, and we got the data by grade, 28% of our sixth graders feel stress and anxiety, 38% of our seventh graders, 46% of our eighth graders, 49% of our ninth graders, and it goes up, our 12th graders, 55% of our 12th graders feel stress and anxiety, and that's a self-report. The absolute inverse is what happens with no issues or no stress or anxiety. 61% of our sixth graders say they don't feel any stress or anxiety. 47% of our seventh graders, and it goes down. There's a little blip that junior year where 38%, it goes from 37% with their 10th grade year, and then 38% in their junior year, and then back down to 36%. That senior years appears to be high stress, high anxiety. Who do our kiddos feel comfortable talking to? They talk to a friend about their problem. 71% say they feel comfortable talking to a friend. 63% report talking to a parent or guardian. And then 54% strongly agree that school makes it easy for students to get support when they need it. One of the things we talk about is making sure that every child has a trusted adult in our school building, and what we can do to ensure that every child has that trusted adult. We're going to be in a great situation next year with a continuity of service with our counselors, because they will, in the middle school in particular, and with the new counseling plan in the high school, where they will grow with the students. So our sixth grade counselor will become the seventh grade counselor, and then Ms. Thompson will remain as the eighth grade, and then the following year will go back down. So that'll give an opportunity for at least 2 years of continued service.
So I mentioned at the beginning of the presentation about our current programming. And so these are all the things that we've done this year. And so we have the DARE program in 5th grade, and then there's also a continuation of it in 7th grade. And so we have that continuity as well. I know I went to the DARE graduation for a little bit this morning, and I was so impressed with the speeches that the students were delivering. I said I wanted to bring a couple of them to the presentation tonight because they could have said it all. I mean, it was just really, really fantastic. So that's a very positive program starting in 5th grade. We also have a lot of things going on at the high school. I'll let Mr. Carter talk about some of those here in just a second. We have programs for students. We had a program for parents. We had a program for staff. We had the canine drug surge this year. We had a lot. It was part of a big program that we had. But as far as the community goes, we had the Community Wellbeing Forum, our drug and alcohol prevention program, which was March 20th. Many of you were there and you remember that. And here were these are some of our partners that we had, our community partners, which I think there are 15 or 20 listed there who came to the program and supported us. So we have a lot of community support as well. So I'll let Mr. Carter talk about some of the items, the sources of strength, Tyler's Light, Nick's Opiates, Prom Promise, and maybe he wants to highlight a couple of those. And then Mrs. LeBeau can talk a little bit about some of their programming as well, real quick here.
All right, one of the first programs we had in place was the Nix opiates presentation that was shared in the middle school cafeteria in the winter. And that presentation was presented by several doctors from the Olentangy area. And they just talked about and exposed us to where opiates come from, why is why is it on the rise in Ohio? And ironically or unfortunately, that night, the chief of police and the fire chief were called out due to an unfortunate overdose in the community at that night. They returned, and we don't know the outcome of that individual, but it hit home that it does happen here in our own community. That was enlightening. We should have more participation, but again, it provided the initial exposure that we need to dive into this a little bit deeper. We had our presentation from a gentleman, the father's name is, the son passed away several years ago in Pickerington named Tyler, and he started an organization and presentation that exposed kids to the unfortunate consequences that can come from using and abusing pain medication. Tyler was a strong athlete, solid athlete, great student in high school, got involved in painkillers in college, and then quickly went downhill and unfortunately lost his life. And he's turned that into an opportunity to educate young people and parents about the signs and signals to be aware of. So that was a great presentation for our students. We then followed up with our Prom Promise Assembly that Mrs. Lori Cheney, special education teacher, shared a very powerful story on how a drunk driver can change the trajectory of someone's life. Her brother, unfortunately, was hit by a drunk driver his junior year in high school, completely changed the course of his life, the family's life, and also encouraged her to be a special education teacher because she saw all the modifications that needed to be made to help him not just get through high school, but now get through life. And that was a very moving experience for our students to have because it shows the power of the human story, and it touched home because she's beloved by, if not many, all the students at the high school. We had Operation Street Smart for our staff, which is a 3-hour high-level presentation that showed staff how people today conceal and hide drugs and alcohol in a number of ways. So it wasn't anything we can do about that presentation except just be aware. And it showed us that it's hard to stay on top of these things. We just have to be aware, look for signs, symptoms, ask the right questions, partner with the right people. And again, just expose our staff to things to look for as we're constantly working on how to help students cope and overcome setbacks. Yes, can't forget House. Through a schedule committee, student advisory board, and House and Eagle Period Committee, so 3 different committees over the last half of the year. We've revamped House. House is going to be 1 day a week. Based on feedback from students, they want to create more of a family group within House. So each student will be a part of a family group within a House group so that taking the concept from the camps that students attend, be it leadership camps over the summer or like the Hogan Leadership Camp that some of our students go to, they may have gone several years ago, but they still connect with the people that were in their smaller family groups. So House, while it's a connection point for our students, they wanted more of a connection with others within their house. So we'll still have 8 houses. Each student will be in a house, and then within each house will be a family. And then we're planning to have either quarterly or monthly town hall meetings for the houses to get together to talk about 4 main topics: healthy living, cultural competency, growth mindset, and the last was social justice. So we'll be much more intentional in creating a situation where students have peer-to-peer mentoring, peer-to-peer intervention, because as we can tell by the data, 71% of our kids will tell us a peer some of their issues and what they're struggling with, but we have to equip our young people to be able to handle that type of conversation. Telling is one thing, but doing something about it is something different. So we're hoping through House, we already have the system in place. We're just going to beef it up to trying to meet our goals and desired outcomes.
Do you think House is a place where
Time for questions,
Sorry. Do you think House is a place where we might also engage the students about the broader culture and the valuing each other
That's where
conversation?
most of those conversations take place now. And what we found with House is very successful with when the adult in the room is engaging and wants to have those conversations and creates the conditions for those conversations to occur. And that's overwhelmingly the case from staff feedback and student feedback as well. So I think with our, I want to say more retooling of House, we'll dive deeper, because one of the things that we're going to implement right away to make sure House is successful, being at the beginning of the school year, is that students will not be able to use their phones during House, because it's 30 minutes out of their busy day to just unplug and connect with people face to face, thus creating those opportunities for conversation. And that was a student initiative as well, which was a good thing.
Do you, when you have those conversations, do you get any insight from the kids around, recommendations to improve their environment?
I mainly got those from me personally, got from the student advisory board, because they are very honest about their perceptions and their realities of the school. And then we can share those with the teachers. And then the teachers, again, who have those strong connections and relationships, they get very honest feedback with the staff or students about their recommendations. And it typically draws back to giving students more of a voice, taking students' follow-up activities seriously, and then how to report anonymously. Like there's still an underlying fear of getting caught or being the snitch. So we're still working through how to make that a cool thing to do, which once we figure that out, we're going to package it and sell it for the district.
Thank you.
So next steps, first of all, we thank our students for their valuable feedback. We appreciate hopefully their honesty and that they participated in the survey. We appreciate that very much. We're going to continue to analyze data. We have a lot more data to analyze in order to align and enhance programming and responses. We're going to also distribute and discuss the summary report findings by building with our staff. I'm going to let Donna and Dwight talk about that a little bit too.
So we've done a preliminary conversation with our staff, but we intend on doing that next Tuesday as well during our staff meeting, a kind of follow-up. The other thing that we're going to ensure that all of our life skills classes are going to teach decision-making as part of the curriculum and really be very intentional about hitting that hard. And then, again, working with our guidance counselors to develop the continuity of service.
Dwight is also working with his team to analyze the data, and we're going to use this data to inform decision-making with staff, leadership, and the counseling team. And so he has a whole action plan that he's developing with his staff, which he can talk more about in a minute. And our major focus for the future is to continue the community well-being forum and some potential topics, as you could see from the slide that Donna shared. Stress and anxiety is certainly something that our students deal with, and that could be in the fall of 2017. I think that's already kind of been decided. And then in the spring of 2018, the alcohol use, abuse, and prevention. The Jefferson series next year, I believe, will have Elizabeth Vargas coming in May. And so that will help continue. Patrick Kennedy did a great job this year with our students and our community. And this will help continue the community discussion around mental health and addiction. Okay, all right, we're just going to go to questions and comments. So if you have any, step up here. They're going to help.
Why do you think it was underreported if it was anonymous?
Go ahead, Dwight, you want to talk about that?
Well, I had some kiddos tell me that it was underreported, that they didn't tell the truth. It's hard with, that was particularly a 7th grade conversation.
Oh.
And it's hard with 7th graders because sometimes there's that bravado in there. We were underreporting or something. So I hope for middle school,
Yeah,
but we're going to be aware
yeah.
regardless.
I don't think they believed that it was anonymous, honestly.
Okay.
We emphasize so much with our students that pause before you post, and if it's digital, you can try to get right
Forever.
back to you. So they took that very seriously and said if you're constantly stressing that, but then you say it's anonymous, how do those two things work? So they were fearful that their answers would be traced back to them and then they'll get into trouble. At least that's the conversation we gathered at our staff meeting when we presented this on Thursday.
Does Hanover Research provide any data to give you a sense of the typical underreporting?
I haven't received that, but I'm sure
They probably do have some data that would give you a sense of what that is, because it's probably pretty consistent across the population.
We discussed it as a staff on Thursday and wondered, is there a paper and good old fashioned paper pencil bubbling the answers? That way it's just produced, it's filtered in another way, so students can be much more honest in that. I don't know, it's just something that the staff had questioned, so.
It really was anonymous.
Yeah.
As with any of these surveys, over time, as you do them repeatedly and nobody gets in trouble, then it will become more, people will be more confident. They are still kids.
Did the 21% surprise you, not surprise you? Substance use across the board? In terms of surprise you, is high or low?
Not using or using? 21% using? I thought that was low in comparison to stories.
Has Hanover provided any benchmarking data versus other schools? Do we feel like that's?
So they're currently in the process of doing the analysis. We got a top line report because we wanted the data back ultimately. So that's why it's being presented. We're now getting additional information that we've requested from them. To answer Mr. Darrow's question, Hanover was actually very pleased with the level of student participation and the lack of parent opt-out. There was a very small percentage of parents that clearly opted their student out. We had released the questions in advance to the families to make sure they knew what the questions specifically were going to be. And based upon your answer to specific questions, it either took you deeper or took you to a completely different topic to keep you moving through the survey. So if you answered no, 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 you could be done in really 4 clicks. If you answered yes to something, 5 more questions appeared. So we had published that in advance to allow parents to see the types of questions the kids would ask. To your end, Mr. Newmoff, with the 21%, as an administrative team, we do believe it's low. Given our conversations and or investigations and what happens daily within the school district and listening to kids, we do believe it's underreported. And again, I think it goes back to the fear and anonymity, that technically your digital signature somehow, some way is captured. And although it went through Hanover, because we didn't get the results, the Hanover facilitated the survey. All we did was provide the kids the link to the Hanover site. Hanover collected the data and gave it back in aggregate format to us. But again, the kids are still fearful. To Mr. Darrow's point, they have to learn to trust that nothing negative is going to happen because they gave us the information.
My only other comment is I appreciate that the programming seems to be much more driven at the student level. I grew up in the 60s and 70s. The anti-drug messages during the 60s and 70s were decidedly silly, if only because we all knew that we weren't getting the accurate information, so kids tended to make fun of it, and it wasn't particularly effective. So to see that the programming is driven so much at the student level by students with a recognition that honesty and accuracy actually pays, I think goes a long way to having students feel more connected to it and at least willing to listen to the message instead of just tuning it out. So that looks good to me.
I grew up when they had this is your brain on drugs. Yeah, so that one worked.
That one worked.
like
Any
it.
other questions?
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
So again, for Board of Education purposes, you have the top line report that came back from Hanover. We will publish the information. There's a parent communication that's going out in reference to the survey data, and then it'll be incorporated into program planning for the developmental aspect of the work in the school district. So we've met the continuous improvement plan target of collecting baseline data, and now we have to use it to ultimately influence the programming on what we can do differently to better meet the needs of kids. And we as an administrative team will be working with staff to make that happen. Ready to go on?
Yes, sir.
Next, on behalf of Mr. Strigley, who's the Coordinator of Maintenance and Operations, the Board of Education will recall that we started a conversation related to capital improvement within the school district. So tonight's topic is specifically focused on roof, the roofs across the school district. So I'm confident that you're going to learn a lot because this is a huge topic for us as a school district. So given that we are not roofing experts, we've asked Wes Van Altry to come this evening from Garland Roofing. Dwight had reached out to him to contract to do independent analyses of the roofs across the school district in order to gain additional information for you as a board to inform our June work session conversation related to capital improvement. So this roof topic is huge. I'm going to let Wes walk you through. We've seen the executive summary and the reports. Ms. Jenkins and I have gone through them with Mr. Strigley. And I'd like to tell you that everything Wes is about to tell you is good news, but unfortunately, it's not.
Thanks for the setup. Well, thank you, first of all, for allowing me to come in and speak with you guys. I know there's a lot of people here tonight that aren't here for roofing, so I will go as quickly as I can. If anybody has any questions, feel free to yell at me or stop me. But as Michael said, Dwight called me in, wanted me to look. Right now, I've just looked at your high school buildings, but wanted to get an idea of what it is that you're typically dealing with. So Garland's actually a roofing manufacturer. We're based out of Cleveland. I'm the local rep here in Columbus, and I've been with Garland now for 10 years. So I wanted to quickly take you through the PowerPoint that's just going to quickly educate you who Garland is, what we do and how we do it, and how we can hopefully help you all moving forward with your roofing needs. So our goal is obviously protecting your building assets. Garland's history, we've been in business for over 120 years now. We're 100% employee owned. Why I think that's important is if I have a roof leak and I have an issue, Garland just doesn't come out and fix it. They look at me as the rep. I have to come out and help, and money can actually come out of my pocket to make sure that leak goes away. That being said, I cross all my T's, dot my I's, I make sure we put the right system on for you guys and it doesn't leak for a long time. We are located in Cleveland, like I mentioned. I'm actually here in Columbus. We have the best DMV rating that you can have in the industry, and Garland's nationally known for what we do. Basically, how Garland's different, most manufacturers are commodities. You can go down to your local supply house, grab whatever roofing materials you need, have somebody throw it up on your roof. We do things differently in the sense that we'll actually design, build your entire project. We take care of all your building asset needs. So what I've done so far for you guys at the high schools is step one, which is go out, look at your buildings, do analysis, give you budgets, the whole 9 yards. Once you've determined that, hopefully I'm the guy that you want to work with moving forward. To really make a roof last, we have to put on quality products. We have to get the right people to install them. And then you have to do the proper maintenance to make sure the roof's going to last long term. Here are the customers that me and my counterpart here in Columbus work with currently. These are obviously just school districts. If you have any questions about any of these districts, please let me know. Most of these, my counterpart's been here 17 years. Like I said, I've been here 10. Most of these districts we've worked with at least 5 or 6 years. And knock on wood, once we start working with the district, we've never lost one because there's nobody else doing what we're doing. So what is it that we're doing? The first step is coming out and doing the analysis, and I'll show you some pictures of what I've done for you guys so far to make a little more sense. When pictures and visual is not enough, we have the ability to do nuclear scans, infrared scans, wind uplift calculations, pull tests. There's certain types of decking that you need to do pull tests on to make sure they're still structurally stable, asbestos testing, you name it. We can get everything done. We're basically a one-stop shop for you. This gives you an idea of what a nuclear scan looks like, helps detect moisture in your roof, lets you know if water is getting into your system. On the bottom is a core sample. We'll actually cut into your roof to determine what your existing makeup is. helps us determine what the right solution is moving forward. So here's your high school map. For now, you'll see we have it A through L. So we have gotten on every one of these roofs in the last month and a half and tried to break everything down for you all. I want to quickly show, and I'm going to walk over here real quick. This little piece of metal right here is what you're going to see in this next picture. Dwight had mentioned this is where your pool is, and I guess when the roof was originally installed, you had condensation issues, and so they came back, redesigned it, and put another metal roof back on. So working with my engineering department, I think we understand what the problem was. And again, if you don't mind me walking over here, basically what your breakdown is you have a metal deck, you have, it's touchscreen, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay, so you have a metal deck, you have a vapor barrier over your metal deck. What they use as a vapor barrier is not used as a vapor barrier anymore today in the States. Canada's still using it, but it's not approved air vapor barrier, which is probably why you're having the problems that you were having. They put 2 layers of insulation over top of the vapor barrier. More than likely, your initial roof system was over top of that. So you had moisture coming up through your roof system, hitting the other side of your deck, condensating. That's why you're having the problems you had. So what they came in and did is they added 1/2 inch of plywood, another layer of 2.5 inch insulation, and they actually have a felt paper over the plywood. That's acting as almost a second vapor barrier, which has gotten rid of your problem. Talking to my engineering team, it's not the way we would have designed it. It's not really the proper way to do a full roof if we were to start from scratch. So when I give you kind of the budget numbers and some of the thought process moving forward, there's always that good, better, best scenario. So how to keep this in mind when I'm quickly talking about that. The next picture here is showing that plywood that they added after the fact. So again, you can see the insulation plywood and then insulation. And you can see the felt paper that's on top of the plywood. And then this is a better look at that vapor barrier that was used. So we also did core analysis on your flat roofs. You have little rubber roofs on the peaks of your shingle roofs. So went up there, we always take a core on the high side for a couple reasons. One, we want to determine how much insulation you currently have on the roof. Per Ohio code, you're supposed to have an R value of 25 as of January 1st of this year. I know R25 probably doesn't mean a lot to people, but every layer of insulation has what they call an R value to it. And thermal resistance. So now they're calling for everything in Ohio to have an R value of 25, which most people don't have, but you're obviously grandfathered in. So we took the core down on the high side. You can see the insulation in the bottom left picture. It was actually soaking wet. So we believe in this case, because the rubber roof itself is in decent shape, that is your edge detail where you see the shingles on the bottom right. That was wide open. You get a wind-driven rain under there, and I think it slowly just started saturating your insulation and migrating more into the middle of the roof. So what do we do? How do we come in and help you? So what the typical philosophy is when it comes to any sort of construction-related project is, you go out and hire an architect. If the architect doesn't know that particular trade real well, then they're going to hire a consultant. They're going to write a specification together. They're going to put it out in the streets. Any contractor that sees it advertised in the newspaper is going to come bid on the work. You get a contractor to win the job, and away you go, hope for the best. So what we do differently is basically I'm coming out and doing all the front end work for you guys. So free of charge. I only get paid on materials that are actually used. So you guys end up not using me moving forward, that's fine. That was a gamble that I took coming in. But the way we do it is we will do all that front end work for you, write the specifications, the whole 9 yards, but then we're actually going to put it out through the Garland authorized contractors. So all the contractors that are allowed to do Garland work have been pre-approved. We have background checks on them, financial checks, the whole 9 yards, so that we know whoever we're going to use has been in business for 10, 20, 30 years, and hopefully they're going to remain in business. And we've got a good quality contractor putting your work on. That's one of the things that you run into when you do a public bid. You don't have a lot of control of who's going to bid on your projects. And you get the 2 men in a truck. They come out, throw a roof on, say, oh, you have a 20-year warranty. When something goes wrong, everybody's pointing fingers. The contractor's pointing back at the architect's pointing at the manufacturer. You got 3 different people pointing fingers. Nobody wants to take responsibility for it. When there's a problem with us, you have one person to point at, it's me. So that's a big thing, is having authorized contractors. How do we actually roll this out for you? We actually can do it through state term or US communities. So I have now had you guys sign up on US communities. You can use all the different vendors. There was absolutely no cost for you to do it. This was actually, all of US communities has been publicly bid out. So Garland actually won the US communities contract on a best value, low price basis. And then we also have the exact same situation through state term. The negative through state term is they actually took away the roofing side's ability to do a design build project. So we can still sell you materials through the state term, we just can't do the design build arm, which is why all of our school systems have now seamlessly switched to US communities. Everybody wants the design build arm. I don't have one school system today that goes out to public bid. So cooperative purchasing, I kind of went through, the nice things you don't have to advertise. That saves you a couple weeks. You don't have to pay for the advertising. You don't have to pay for all the bid packages, the whole 9 yards. You have predictability because we can actually pick the contractors that you want bidding on your work. I typically sit down with the board, with Dwight, give you a list of 15 contractors. If you're familiar with any of them, you pick 3, 4, or 5 competitive bid on the work, and then we go from there. And whatever little bid we have, we know it's going to be a good little bid. So cost reduction, the nice thing is the material I do sell you, I'm selling you at the lowest possible price that legally I'm allowed to. Garland will not let us sell any material lower than what our state term US communities contracts call for, because that's a quick, easy way to lose your GSA contracts. We do a lot of state government work. So there's no fees to take part in the state term or US communities. There's no minimum order requirements. So there's really nothing holding you guys to anything, which is nice. So the inevitable question comes up, well then, obviously, how do you get paid less? Like I mentioned earlier, I get paid the materials I sell. The nice thing is, you know exactly what all my materials cost. You can go on the state term website, type in Garland, pull it up. Every single thing that we have is on there. So there's no funny business with the pricing. And one thing I can also tell you quickly is most manufacturers have to have everything from the deck up to actually warrant a roof. Garland doesn't. As long as we actually have the membrane or the metal roof, whatever's on top, Garland will warrant everything underneath it, even if it's not ours. So that being said, we carry insulation, but we don't make it. We private label. So if I sold you my insulation, we're going to buy it and mark it up, and you're paying over 10 or 15% for the exact same product. So in my 10 years, I've never sold any insulation because I don't believe it brings value to you. So anything I sell you is going to be based on a need or value for the system that we're talking about. This gives you an idea of all the different partners that are on US communities. So again, you can go out here anytime, utilize any of these now, you guys are signed up. And then quickly, what do we do differently? These are basically our 10 main steps. I've already done the inspections, some of the testing. Now it comes time to what recommendations that you want to discuss and what you want to look at moving forward. And then once we actually decide what it is you want to do, I will write the specification package, or a pre-bid meeting. Hope you select a contractor you want to work with, or contractors, depending on how much work you're looking to do. And then we walk through the entire process with you. We in turn turn into a project manager, and we will be on your job site every single day that somebody is working. We have a team of 4 locally. You'll get progress reports every night, so you know exactly what's being done on your facilities. And then at the end, we're the ones that carry the warranty. So here's the ugly stuff that you were warned about. I'm going to pass these out real quick because it's not easy to see on the screen.
Thank you. Thank you.
And I got extras if anybody else needs. Just yell at me or thumbs up. So what you'll see up there is basically a game plan for your high school buildings that we looked at in a previous slide. So on your left, you'll see the actual drawing with the labels on it, and then on the right side of the corner, you have the numbers. So as of right now, my recommendation, if you had to do something first, it would actually be your metal roof on section A. And I'll hear a quicker way to go. That slide had the actual one. So section A's metal roof is in pretty rough shape. We actually, again, I could stand up here for now, but I don't want to do that to everybody, but we've got all the pictures or reports that we can walk you through to give you kind of an idea of what you're dealing with. but that roof's in rough shape. It's pretty open. You can stick your hand underneath the metal. You've got where a lot of snow loads have slid down, actually crushed your standing seams. So that would probably be my focal point. If, after looking at all your different roofs, I would probably start with that Section A metal. In the process, they're probably going to beat up a little bit of that Section B rubber, which has at least 20 repairs in it already. So yeah, put that on your plate a little bit as well. You'll see on there that I've got highlighted that EPDM option. The reason that one's highlighted is even though the total cost estimate shows to be $2.2 million, for that section, which is Section B, I actually gave you two different options. You could either coat that roof, or you could actually rip it off and put a new roof on. So there's a couple situations where there are going to be different options. Your shingle roofs, you can obviously come back with a metal roof. That's going to be a little more expensive. It's a longer term solution. We're going to have less maintenance, less issues down the road. But this is at least a decent starting point to give you an idea of kind of where you're at and how much longer we think a lot of these roofs are going to last. The one thing Dwight did mention is Section H. That's got your little dome on it. He thought, if nothing else, you didn't have to budget to do anything else, he'd like to maybe get started on that one, just as a starting point. So show you guys what it is we do and how we do it, because he's got some issues over there. Any questions on any of this? I mean, I can pull up.
Hey, Wes, Section A, that's the gym. That's the entire roof, not just the section you were talking about, right?
Yes.
Yes, you're replacing the entire roof.
The entire roof meaning all the metal.
Yes.
Okay. So what does that do for, like, from a timing perspective? I know you say action year 2018 here, and maybe I'm jumping ahead, but if you were going to do that, I mean, is that something that's done in a short period of time so we're not losing the use of our one gymnasium that we have for the high school during the school year?
And yeah, I mean, typically all schoolwork is done in the
Summer, yeah.
At this point, I wouldn't even recommend trying to do anything. Most of the good contractors are already loaded up on schoolwork, especially something of this size. So you would pay a premium to get a roof done right now. I wouldn't recommend it.
So you're looking at 2018.
Yeah, so typically what I've done in the past, we would look to bid out in January, February. Anymore, I'm actually holding bids in November for the following summer. And contractors like it because they want to get something locked in and on the books. School systems like it because they have the best availability of the contractors, because it only takes one or two jobs for a contractor to be done for the summer typically. So the earlier you get it out, which, you know, if you could shoot for a November, we make them all hold their pricing so that you're guaranteed that price whenever school lets out the first week of June, and away we go. So you should be, depending on the option you go with. So to give you an idea, this Section A, we can do what they call a roof hugger system, which they can actually we can put a metal roof over your existing metal roof. Now I'd have to have a structural evaluation done, usually costs a couple $1,000s, not a big deal. I work with a guy that does quite a bit of this. He would come in, look at it, let us know if the structure can actually handle the additional weight. I've never had one fail on a building like this. That's going to be very uninvasive. I don't think the gym will be disturbed whatsoever. If you decided you want to take everything off down to the original deck and start over, or the structural evaluation doesn't let us do that, we have to start over, then you're talking a whole new ballgame. You have to rip off everything. There's probably going to be dust and debris getting on the floor. But if we can just put a metal roof right over the existing one, you won't even know anybody's up there, minus a little bit of noise.
Your cost estimate is what? The cost
estimate is based on doing the retrofit.
Okay.
As long as it's approved and we're able to get away with it.
Okay, and if, just humor me, if we had to do a new roof.
Yeah, you're at 600 now. You're probably in the 9+ range, maybe more, depending on how much insulation you want to put back. Because right now the insulation value you have is right just below. So anytime you rip off and start over, we have to hit code at that point. So now anything that doesn't meet code requirements, we'd have to hit.
So the retrofit is new metal on top of existing metal?
Correct. They would actually put, you mind flipping on that other website real quick? So if you picture your standing seam metal, you have the little standing seams and the flat part in the middle. We'd actually put insulation in between the standing seams. This roof hugger system goes horizontally across the metal, and then you actually fasten the new metal into the roof hugger system.
All the existing material stays there,
Right.
even if it's wet.
Well, theoretically, yes. So what we should have done is what they call a nuclear scan to see if you do have wet. The problem with a metal roof, it's very easy to replace wet in any other type of roof. Metal, especially the metal that you have, if you have what they call a T-seam, you just pop off the seam, pull out the panel, replace what's wet, put it back. You have a male-female crimped panel, it is darn near impossible to take apart and just equally as hard to put back together. So you start taking that apart to get to some of the wet, you're in big trouble. So this is the website that any of you can have access to. Dwight's got it right now, but anybody else that wants it, let me know. So everything that I've done for you is on this site. So once you log in, you can see all the different roof sections that are on that map for you there. If you go ahead and just click on roof section. Okay. Okay. It'll actually take you into this section itself. If you scroll through it, the report that I wrote is down there. You can click on that. You can see the pictures. The whole 9 yards is all at your fingertips if any of you want access to it.
I guess the question is, I mean, since this is the first one on the list, I mean, we know or have been told from the work that you've done that the current roof that's on there right now has issues, for lack of a better term, including, rust and the possibility of, more decay, I guess. So are we putting a Band-Aid? I mean, I get putting another metal roof on, but I mean, if we're going to be investing that kind of resource into our district, I'm just curious from your opinion, is it really worth doing that, or are we just setting ourselves up for more trouble later if we don't go ahead and just fix the problem?
On section A, no, you'll be fine. Because I've done a lot of this roof hugger. Once you put on the new metal system, the new system's watertight itself, what's underneath it is pretty much irrelevant, minus the insulation value. The one section C over your pool roof, I do have a concern there. Could you still get away with a roof hugger? Yes. But if for any reason, like after they added that second roof on and that extra insulation, they got your dew point calculation right and your building is currently functioning properly. But we come in and put a second metal roof over top, we've done nothing in regards to the system itself. So if the HVAC system changes up in that building, anything changes with the building to offset that dew point, you could end up having condensation again, and then you're going to come back and look at us, but we haven't done anything at that point. So the only way I can comfortably, tell you you're not going to have a condensation issue down the road for C is ripping everything off to the deck and completely redoing it and doing it the way that the engineers have approved over a pool roof. We do a lot of pool roofs. They're pricey, and there's a right way to do them. Talking to my guys, as long as you keep everything the way it is today, you could put on a retrofit metal roof with a roof hugger and be totally fine. But anything changes in that building, you have to figure out what's changed and how to go back to it.
You're right, it's not good news.
Wait till you read the reports that are on Wes's website. Becky and I are about a third of the way through them. They're very informative. We've learned a lot. I'm not a roofing expert. I'm not going to pretend to be. So we're looking for the resources to come to the school district to help to do the assessment. The references were impeccable. So I will tell you the school districts that Wes illustrated all speak very highly of their relationship with Garland. And really the investment that Garland makes before they're even selected to become the vendor by the school district. So we're very appreciative of the work that's been done to date. This is the beginning of the conversation related to roofs. You will gain access to the website. We did not send that to you yet, but we will, so that you actually can go in and look at everything electronically, including all the photos. They are extensive to the core samples, to the damage, to every single roof at the high school that's currently been assessed. There are hundreds of pictures that you'll get to enjoy. as you work through the reports. But Becky and I plan on bringing this back at the June work session for continued conversation as we continue to figure out what to do with capital improvement and future funding for the school district related to a capital improvement fund, either through general revenue source or other. But this was the start of a continued conversation specifically on the roof. So Wes, we thank you. I apologize. We made a modification at the last meeting because you were supposed to be at the May work session and we had to make an adjustment to that. So I thank you for your flexibility in agreeing to come tonight instead of at the last meeting so that this conversation can happen to allow the board to have the opportunity to look at all the materials in the next 2 weeks prior to our work session in June.
So no problem. And I'm sorry, go ahead.
This seems like it's conservative or not conservative.
Is that a question?
I'd like to see worst case scenario because I feel like maybe some of these could go a lot higher if you find other issues or if we decide not to do the roof hugger, like for example over the pool. Can you come back to us with, you know, not doing retrofit and what that cost might be, just so we have, you know, the range of what the cost difference might be?
Yeah, that's not a problem. And I apologize for not, the system only allows me to put in one to kick it out in the spreadsheet, but I can manually add additional ones because I think that's a good idea for section C. And then the problem is on a lot of your shingle roofs, you have no ventilation in them currently. And without ventilation, shingles just naturally fail prematurely because they just get too hot and they wear down. So I budgeted your shingles, excuse me, at $5 a square foot, which we've done a couple schools, large schools for $3.50 a square foot, but I've also gone up to $16 a square foot, depending on what needs to be done. Down at Morgan Local Schools right now, they decide they wanted ventilation because they were having so many problems, worse problems than you guys are having, but that we took everything down to the deck, built the insulation, and then actually put a vented nail board in, and then build a ridge cap vent and an eave vent. And we've got everything venting now, but it costs quite a bit to do it. So if you decided right now, Dwight just said, you know, let's go back with as is, but you want to go back and add venting to the buildings that don't have it now, J, K, and L do. E, F, and G, and I and H do not. So if you wanted to add venting to those, the numbers I have you are low. Most numbers, typically I try to go high. And I always tell everybody, these are just budgets. We haven't bid them out yet. So I always ask if you really want something, a hardcore number, let me bid it out. It doesn't hold you to anything legally whatsoever. It'll give you hard numbers to look at. And still at that point, if you decide not to go with Garland, it is not a problem. Again, you're not held to anything, but at least you'll know exactly where you stand. Because I will tell you the other tricky part about your campus is setup. This is just not an easy area to work around. You've got a lot of gates, trees. There's not a lot of area for these guys to work with. So the labor is not going to be cheap. And that's really hard to really budget until you actually get guys out here and they come up with a game plan of how to attack it.
Is it typical in commercial construction to not have a vented roof?
No. No. Sorry.
I've certainly never heard of it, so.
I mean, almost every single residential house.
That's residential.
Should have
That's why I
shingles.
said in commercial construction, is it typical in commercial construction to not have a vented roof?
It's just cheaper. So it boils down to value engineering on a job when the money's needed. I mean, I see it quite a bit. I would say schools are probably a 50-50 split on which ones are vented and which ones are not. But the ones that aren't, you're looking at typically the shingles are making it 15 to 20 years versus you can get 20, 25, maybe a little longer if it is vented. It also depends on, you know, what wind issues you're dealing with. Here, you're not going to be as bad as a lot of the school districts I work with that are kind of out in the middle of nowhere, that the winds just come in and just shred their shingle roofs.
So none of these cost estimates include labor costs?
Oh, no, it's everything.
Okay.
Yeah, it's everything.
I need you guys to stop. You have to stop asking questions because this is getting more and more expensive.
I'll ask a different question. How's that? So Wes or Michael, could you just explain again the U.S. relationship with U.S. communities and what that means as it relates to the bid process? This is, you know, these are public buildings, but it's, you know, we're basically working through U.S. communities, the bid process has already happened, correct?
Correct. So do you want me to answer?
Go ahead.
Okay. So U.S. Community's been around a long time. There actually has been other manufacturers that have held the roofing contract for years. We took it over, or won it, I should say, 4 or 5 years ago. And I've got all the results at home, so I can email those out to you as well. So it shows the bid tabulation, who bid it and who won it. And then we actually won the renewal this past year. So we were one of the only states that even had a state term contract. So for us, it was perfect timing because the state pulled it away from us about a year after we had got the U.S. Communities contract. So we just transitioned everybody right over. But yeah, I mean, we've been using this concept now since I started. So it's at least been 10 years.
Thank you.
Wes, on behalf of the Board of Education, we'd like to thank you for coming this evening. Again, I apologize, we had to reschedule from the last time, but Board of Education members, I will share, and our Becky, one of the two of us, will send you the links that we've secured from Dwight for you to review all the information. And to Mr. Darrow's question specifically, I think it's very important as you're reviewing the information that Wes has put together, you will discover that in the history of the school district, during the building phase, specifically at the high school, there were budgetary issues that resulted in value engineering, to Mr. Darrow's point. So you will see that in our conversations with Dwight, the original design was actually not what was built at the high school because of the value engineering that resulted during the construction project. So there were cost containments that happened in the roofing structures specifically. But we will share that information with you, and we'll continue the conversation at the June work session.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate your time.
Thank you, Wes.
Board policies.
This is going to be quick and easy this evening. We have on the board agenda, continued conversation related Board of Education policies, the second reading and/or first reading for new board policies that are being recommended. They're all within the 6,000 series specifically for finance. I'm sure Becky will be happy to answer any specific questions, but in summary, case in point, they're updates through Ohio Revised Code and/or through the Universal Cost Accounting System requirements for what has to happen in financials. So we've given you 6 additionals, or 5 additionals plus the current one for second reading on, or first reading on grant funds. But everything's related to finance. There are changes specifically in procedural requirements and ORC. They're not, for me as an educator, I mean, I learned something about them, but this is Becky's world, so
Thank you.
they weren't fascinating for me. I apologize.
I find your work fascinating, though. So 61, 10, 11, 12, 14, 16 all pertain to federal grants. And so we either are modifying or adding the new policies just so that we're in compliance with the federal laws that guide those. 6108, authorization to make electronic fund transfers. We do that. That's not federal grant money. That's just the district in some cases. That's how we make some payments. So we've included that policy so that we are in line with the Ohio Revised Code.
More questions?
It really is exciting.
I'm thrilled.
Great.
That's all.
Mr. Newmoff probably liked them.
Fascinating.
Mr. Bush too. You're finance people.
One of them actually isn't just about the finance piece, but anyway, it's all about grants.
Awesome. Thank you. We are at our first opportunity for public participation tonight, and we have a couple. Okay, first person tonight, Mr. Stephen Kish. Please come to the podium. Reminder, please, just to give us your name, your address, and you have 5 minutes, more or less.
Not more.
Less. Clock is running, go.
All right, thank you, President McClellan, Mr. Sawyers, other members of the board. My name is Stephen Kish, 4347 Brompton Court, New Albany, in Ohio. So I actually do have a couple other of my peers here tonight who are going to come after me at some point and address specifically more of the response to the vandalism that occurred earlier this week, or last week rather, on our campus. But I'm actually here to rave to you about Mr. Carter for about a minute and then show you a video where we as a school will rave about Mr. Carter for about 3.5 minutes. So hopefully that's all within my time. A couple very quick stories. 3 years ago, Mr. Gellert, who was an assistant principal at the time, called me down to his office and asked me to come to a Board of Education meeting, very much like this one, with a lot of different faces, and say a few words about Mr. Carter for Principals Appreciation Month. So Mr. Carter had been working at the school for about 2 months, including summer months. I really didn't know him, so what would I say other than, yeah, sure, I'll do that. So I did, but let me just say I could not be more thrilled 3 years later to stand here today and tell you about Mr. Carter. My second favorite story about Mr. Carter actually came last April. We hosted our annual TEDx event. Cleanup and teardown did not go very well. We were asked very nicely to have everything out the next morning. It was on a Saturday, so Sunday morning, who would roll up with a big smile on his face to help us clean up other than Mr. Carter? That is my second favorite story. My favorite story was actually written just this past week. Mr. Sawyer's touched on this earlier, but as you all obviously know at this point, some people wrote some nasty things on our tennis courts Monday. Monday and Tuesday were very long and hard days for students, staff, administrators, everybody. On Tuesday at 2:30, Mr. Carter rallied the entire high school, arms linked all the way around the quad. And at that moment, that was a representation of who we truly are. Way more than anything that was written on our tennis courts on Monday morning. I can honestly say that after a lot of great things and accomplishments in my 4 years here in New Albany, I have never, ever been prouder to be a New Albany High School Eagle than at that moment and for the rest of Peace Week. All this, the unity and the pride, yeah, it was a result of all of us coming together as a student body, as a staff, as a school. But the catalyst was the incredible and really just unbelievable leadership of Mr. Carter, Mr. Carr, Mrs. Warren, and Ms. Angles. I could continue to rave about them, but instead, I'd actually like to show you a video that myself, Alexis, Jamie, and about 8 other seniors at our high school created to thank them. And just as a testament to the enthusiasm, this video from idea to final product was 24 hours. People really, really rallied around this. That was level of enthusiasm. And this is actually less than half of the footage that we got because we were held to some time constraints for the exhibition that we showed it at. So lots of enthusiasm.
All differences in diversity that represent who we are.
I appreciate how you make me feel like I matter. I appreciate your passion and your support.
I appreciate everything you've done for us.
I appreciate you for doing what is right. Hey, Mr. Carter, I just want to thank you for everything you do. We really appreciate it.
Mil gracias por toda su apoyo y muchos besos.
I appreciate how much you care for the students and how you always stood up for what's right.
I always admire the administration and Mr. Carter's positivity towards students.
I admire Mr. Carter for being a principal that was inclusive.
I admire Mr. Carter for the way that he engaged with the students and connects with them.
I admire Mr. Carter for being one of the most involved staff members at New Albany High School.
Mr. Carter, thank you for all you do to promote peace.
Mr. Carter and the administration, thank you for always being flexible and easy for students and teachers to come talk to.
Hey, Mr. Carter, thank you for making a great day every day.
The administration this year has definitely helped me love high school more.
Mr. Carter and administration have motivated me to keep going this year.
Mr. Carter, I appreciate how you have this living discussion and opening lines of communication between students and administration.
And Mr. Carter, the students was absolutely crazy, but you guys handled it very well. Thank you so much.
Mr. Carter, Mr. Carr.
Angles.
Mrs. Warren.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for caring.
Thank you so much for everything you did this past week.
Thank you for all that you do. We appreciate you guys working it out. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much for all you do.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Carter, for greeting me with a smile every day in the hallway.
Thank you.
And thank you for always encouraging me to join the team and be a part of the community that I am proud to be a part of.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Carter, for being so passionate and caring for every single student.
Thank you.
Thank you to the staff and the administration for creating a safe environment and belonging.
Thank you for supporting us.
Thank you. I have Ava.
Thanks for always having our backs.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Carter, for your dedication to help students succeed.
Thank you for always being there for students.
Thank you for unifying our school during a hard time. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Carter, for everything. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Carter, for keeping it real.
Thank you for keeping our school campus and community with compassion, character, and heart.
One last thing that I will add is that all that footage was from that impromptu unifying rally that Mr. Carter held at 2:30 last Tuesday. And it was a really organic moment, so glad that you got this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Very
you.
much.
Thank you, Stephen.
Alexis and Jamie, were you guys going to speak to? Come on up.
Good evening. My name is Alexis Rudy from 5894 Evelton Road.
And I'm Jamie Shore, 3725 Prestwood Close.
And we are high school seniors at New Albany High School. And everyone here has obviously heard about what happened on Monday to our school. There's been a lot of information going out, a lot of different opinions. But we are here tonight basically just to offer you some information of what it was like from a student's perspective in the walls of New Albany High School that week. Honestly, to be blunt, Monday and Tuesday were pretty rough days for us at our school because as soon as everybody found out, social media is a thing, people find out very quickly. So there was a lot of negativity going around and people had a lot of trouble processing what happened, I think mostly because people wanted to throw blame everywhere. People wanted to voice their opinions. It was pretty rough because honestly, conversations about what happened for everything that happened during Monday, like almost nothing else. And there was just a lot of conflict, just huge uproar, and rightfully so. And it was the realization that this was the start of our Peace Week was made very quickly. It was unfortunate the timing that, this is the opening of one of the best weeks of high school every single year because during Peace Week, it's a time for us students to come together and celebrate our diversity and just celebrate being together and having fun at school. So that was unfortunate that immediately everyone thought, this is ruining our Peace Week, especially for us seniors. It was our last one because especially Peace Week, the whole idea behind it is that it's not about protesting or combating violence or hate. It's about promoting the good that we have and the peace that we have at our school. And that is exactly what Mr. Carter did at 2:30 on Tuesday when he came over the announcements and basically told us, we're a lot better than this. New Albany has a lot more to offer. And that's when he came up with the idea and presented to everyone that we're going to come together on the quad in the afternoon. And as you see, we all linked arms in support of everyone. And Jamie's going to talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah, and I think that was definitely a big turning point, that unification rally. And I really want to thank Mr. Carter for doing that because I think that was the turning point. And I think it was a physical representation for everyone and all of us students and staff to see that we are one and we are a school of togetherness and community and unity. And it was this physical representation that even through the difficult times, it's important that we stand together because we're all affected. And it's important to all of us to pursue it in a positive manner. And so this definitely made a difference in our school for the remainder of Peace Week, which I was very thankful speaking from a senior's point of view, since this was a week that we definitely were looking forward to since it was our last week and our last Peace Week. And to have this kind of put a damper on it in the beginning. It was difficult and it was frustrating and we didn't know what would come of it. So to be able to end on such a positive note, and I just am more proud than ever to be a part of New Albany High School, and I'm very fortunate for the experiences I've had in the administrators and the staff that I've gotten to know over the last 4 years, and to have this strong sense of community more than ever before. I'm just so thankful to New Albany High School for teaching me the importance of community and diversity and accepting differences and togetherness. And I want to thank Mr. Carter for making last week a great week, even in the light of the negativity of the vandalism during our Peace Week. So definitely New Albany's headed in a great direction, and I'm very thankful for the leadership present at the high school and the entire district. And I think New Albany's headed in a very, very positive direction. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Good job. Thank you.
You know, too many times, especially today, we tend to react very quickly to things and emotionally. And the three of you, the response that you showed this week and that you showed us here tonight it shows a lot of character, and really appreciate you coming. Well, of course, Mr. Carter and a lot of other people too, but it's good to see our young people acting in such a responsible and adult way. So thank you very much.
I think it speaks to what Michael referenced to. It's you know, not really about what happened. It's about how we react to it that defines us. And I know we will continue to have conversations around this and look for ways to create the most positive, safe environment for every student to experience at the high school and throughout our schools. But, you know, the sense I get is there was a coming together last week that rose above the adversity and the difficult things that we had to deal with. So I think that probably took the whole community to do that. And I feel very proud of all of you being involved in that. So thank you all.
Is that everybody? Mm-hmm. Okay, thanks. Okay, treasurer's items tonight. I need a motion on just this one item this evening.
So moved.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. Ms. Jenkins?
So we continue to run slightly over projections in revenue, as we've been talking about the last couple of months. You'll see that in the monthly receipts, we did start to see a bigger increase or a bigger collection in the income tax sharing, which is what we expected. I do expect for May to be higher than expected as well. So I think that between that $3 to $3.2 million that we've discussed is going to be pretty accurate. And then again, personnel services, employee retirement benefits are running under budget as well. As we've been talking, we expected them to be under budget. So overall, in a better financial shape now than we would have otherwise been. I do want to continue to watch those expenses. I would like in June based on just the capital needs, not knowing what we're going to do with PI moving forward as far as a levy, I would like to take a portion of any unspent funds that we've been doing this the last several years, but would like to transfer those to the Permanent Improvement Fund so that we have those on standby, especially when you look at those roofs. And we will send out the link to the roof bids, but $2.2 million just for the high school buildings, and we haven't looked at the other buildings, is daunting, not to mention the track, asphalt repairs, et cetera. So we'll watch that, get a final number, and then in June, come back and ask the board to transfer some funds.
Questions? No questions. Could I have a roll call, please?
Ms. Kalinowski?
Yes.
Vice President Darrow?
Yes.
Mr. Newmoff?
Yes.
Mr. Bush?
Yes.
President McClelland?
Yes. Next is superintendent items. We can take all of them, I think, at once, A1 to D1. Could I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Okay.
Include the addendum.
Oh, and the addendum, correct. So the addendum would be under.
The
addendum is
personnel and
included.
general business.
Yes.
So include the addendum, please.
So the motion to include the addendum as well.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Sawyers.
Thank you, President McClellan. Standard employee actions this evening for personnel pursuant to Ohio Revised Code and/or the negotiated agreements, both for the master contract for the Plain Local Education Association for PLE and the non-teachers for OPSI. You have recommendations this evening for personal actions for contract renewals, both for limited and/or continuing contract status on the teacher side, exempt personnel for non-teaching, and then OPSI based upon the probationary term limited and/or continuing status to be earned. Additionally, this evening you have options for opportunities for stipends to pursue the summer coursework, professional development, or learning that takes place across the school campus, or the requirements necessary to meet specific student needs based upon their continuation of learning throughout the summer months. Those are also additional items for this evening. We're approving amendments to classified contracts at the end, as well as new hires and/or resignations as we continue to staff for the 2017-18 school year. The good news this evening is that based upon the conversations with Dr. Troyer, after this evening's recommendation, all teaching positions for the 2017-18 school year will have been filled. So we are well ahead of schedule. We have all of our teachers in line for the 2017-18 school year, and we're very, very excited and happy to welcome additional professionals to our faculty in our school district upon your approval this evening. For general business this evening, you have opportunities to improve the enrollment of employee children to work. This is based upon the contractual terms and conditions of the collective bargaining agreements within the school district. So we are recommending approval for those incoming kindergartners for select staff members that meet those requirements. Additionally, contracts for the purchase of technology for a server within the school district for hosting purposes. Ms. Jenkins and I just want to talk a little bit about this. You have a recommendation this evening for contract approval for Think CSC. This is actually for the physical purchase of security cameras. You'll recall that approximately 2 years ago within the school district, we did an extensive security audit when I was chief of operations. And since then, I've been trying to figure out what we're going to do for funding purposes for security cameras across the school campus. This is the first of 2 contracts that will come forward. The second one I anticipate will come in June. This is specifically to order the physical cameras. We were fortunate in working with Mr. Voss that we were able to secure a pilot for the school district using a Meraki camera through the Cisco network that became available on the marketplace. The original number that we had anticipated 2 years ago when we did the audit was approximately $500,000 for security upgrades across the school campus to purchase really and replace additional security cameras on campus to help keep everyone safe. Mr. Voss has done extensive work with the vendors, and because we were a pilot in the school district, has been very active in negotiating a new rate for these cameras that we're really paying approximately 30 to 35% on actual market price for. So we're recommending this evening the approval of a contract. It's for 200 cameras on our school campus, 150 internal, 50 external, that will be placed to better meet the safety and security needs across the school campus. The money to pay for those is actually out of the PI fund for previous dollars that were transferred from the general revenue fund. So the 2009 PI levy was exhausted. However, there is a balance in the PI fund because of the transfers that have occurred, as Ms. Jenkins referenced in her prior commentary. Under field trips this evening, we're recommending that, I have one other thing under general business, and it's an important thing because I need you to approve the actual graduation list for the class of 2017 for Saturday. So provided that we approve everyone, Mr. Carter and I will certify at graduation based upon the audits, academic audits that are currently ongoing at the high school, the graduation list for the class of 2017. So in order to be eligible to hand them a diploma upon certification at graduation, I need you to please approve the graduation list. So I apologize, I almost skipped over that. Mr. Carter would have had a heart palpitation. It would have been approved, but I wouldn't have talked about it. But we're very happy and excited to welcome the class of 2017 and look forward to actually issuing them their diploma on Saturday. Field trip this evening is approval of a trip that has happened in the past to the United Kingdom as part of the International Drama Performance in Edinburgh, Scotland. Mr. Lemberg at the high school through a competition because it's a competitive trip to be eligible to apply. The students were selected to again participate in the Fringe Festival. Participation's contingent upon sufficient student participation in the required trip to occur. But we're asking this evening for the approval of the international trip to allow Mr. Lemberg to start to advertise it for the kids. As always, we do want to thank those those persons that are generous to our school district for the donations that you also have on your agenda this evening for approval. With that, I will answer any questions the Board of Education members may have.
Any questions? None? Can I have a roll call, please?
Ms. Kalinowski?
Yes.
Mr. Newmaw?
Yes.
Mr. Bush?
Yes.
Vice President Darrow?
Yes.
President McClellan?
Yes. Second opportunity for public participation. All right, with none, then I need a motion, please, and a second to enter into executive session as permitted by 121.22G4 of the Ohio Revised Code for preparing for negotiations or bargaining sessions with public employees concerning their compensation or other terms and conditions of their employment.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. And a roll call, please.
Vice President Darrow?
Yes.
Ms. Kalinowski?
Yes.
Mr. Bush?
Yes.
Mr. Newmaw?
Yes.
President McClellan?
Yes. So we are adjourning to executive session. There will be no action taken this evening, so thank you all for being here this evening. We'll see you soon.